Hello and welcome to another episode of Top Deck, the series where we take a look at some of the leading TCG deck lists. And on today we have Morgan, who took a 60 card Pendulum list to YCS London, and guess what? He ended up X-2. Now if you're looking for some more in-depth analysis of YCS London and other competitive events, definitely check out my brand new series of The Forecast, which showcases all sorts of goings on once a month. We just look at the previous month and we investigate what's going to happen in the upcoming month. So the episode for November is available now to stream, so go ahead and check that out. But back to this deck list, 60 card Pendulum at the infamous YCS London. So many X2s from this event not making it into Top Cut. That is just unfortunately the way of the world at the moment. And let's check out the list that Morgan took. So tons of engines in here. We have the Curtain Raisers, the Chronograph Sorcerer engine, one Destrudo, because obviously you can summon it out with the LP and then start making your link plays before you go into your Dawn Dragster, etc. One Endymion Mighty Master, triple Abductor, you just spam this out with so many different cards going off. Triple Magister is pretty interesting. One Gerudo, one Jackal King, triple Cerberus, get you searching off. Triple Reflection, this has been really taken up recently just because there's so much stuff in the meta that can be outed by bouncing it. The Zephyr engine here of Zephyr Ampilica and one Zephyr Wendy, triple Servant, triple Darkworm, one Gate Zero, just I guess assuming that you're not going to draw the other one given that you have another 59 cards in your deck. One Tempest, one Time Gaze, let's go with that, the Zephyros, Zephyr Enemy, even the Zephyr engine in here. Ravine, triple Shrine, one Eteli, tons of draw cards, draw spells, Oracle of Zephyr, more draw spells. Get your field spells out with set rotation and terraforming, get your Endymions out with spell power mastery, more draw spells and search spells for Zephyrs, and finally the one Zephyr Divine Strike, the counter trap is searchable by your main combos. For the extra deck, one Vortex, one Dawn Dragster, one Absolute, go without the Appaloosa because you can spam out so many monsters. You can just very easily put this up, as well as the other Link 4s that we always see, Borreload and Borrowsword. To combo with the Ravine, there's the Romulus here, LP to combo with all the dragons. Electrum, of course, Hieratic Seal, IP to get some interruption via the Phoenix and Unicorn that are here. One Sayuja, just in case your hand doesn't make the strongest board possible and you need to put some extra stuff on the field and get your hand reset, and then one Triple Burst for the usual Dragon Madness combos. For the side deck, triple Eccentric. This is not a super popular choice as of late, but very good for generic removal, especially when you're going to an event as big as YCS London. You need to be able to remove as much as possible. So triple Eccentric and triple Pancratops for the same reason there. The Zephyr Twins for additional combos and additional removal. One Agov Dragon for time. Triple Book of Eclipse to deal with any of the big monsters that stick on the board and you can't deal with, like Thunder Dragons, and very similar for the Dark Rule No More, except this also has application in the Mirror Match. So that rounds off this enormous list. Let's get on to the rounds then that Morgan played. So there were 11 rounds of Swiss at YCS London, and we kicked things off with going up against True Draco and a 2-0 here. So losing the die roll, the opponent opened pretty well, but Morgan was able to bait his opponent and then deal with a few misplays on the opponent's side, allowing him to make a Borrowsword with a Masquerena over 2 turns. Game 2, the opponent only had a couple of interrupts, and that allowed Morgan to just play through and kill him. This deck pumps out so much aggressive power. Now round 2 against Pure Thunder, the first loss here, so a 1-2, losing the die roll, and unfortunately a hand that loses to Colossus. There are a lot of search cards in this deck, which does mean that suddenly becomes a bit of a problem. Game 2 opened up pretty broken, and then in Game 3 the opponent opened Order, and Morgan had like 5 spells, so kind of screwed there. Round 3 against Hero, so the first of the more roguish decks that we see from this event, going 2-0 by winning the die roll. The opponent told him that he would have gone second anyway, nearly breaking through the board, but it is a little short, so not able to defeat Morgan, who then in the turn after retaliates and kills the opponent. Game 2, the opponent just draws 2 increase and can't play, and then Morgan's able to push through and kill him in the following turns. Round 4 against Marincess, 2-0, losing the die roll, but the deck really doesn't do anything. The guy he played against wasn't English and neither were his cards, so he thought that that basically he was just going to put out the towers. So in order to deal with that, Morgan just popped off all of the equips and then killed the opponent, but it turns out all he had to actually do is pop the field spell. So keep in mind, guys, if you need to beat Marius, just deal with the field spell. That's all that you care about. And then after you do that, you pretty much win the game anyway, because you just have to deal with some minor back row, and Borosword is always super strong in these situations. Round 5 against Orcust, going 2-1, losing the die roll. Unfortunately, Morgan can't really remember what the opponent did to win game 1, but in game 2 he opened a really broken combo, and then the opponent told him afterwards that he had Nibiru, but the deck is so good because you could just get out Jackal with the counters anyway before summon number 5. So you never have to worry about Nibiru anyway. In game 3 they both bricked. The opponent had a Sanctum but didn't draw a monster for many turns, so eventually Morgan was just able to win from there. Round 6 against Salamangrate. So the second and final loss for Morgan here. Winning the die roll but getting hand trapped twice in 2 very important places means that he doesn't end on very much in the first game, and the opponent wins that one. Game 2 is very similar, but Morgan's hand is a bit stronger. He ends on something quite decent, but the opponent has a lot of good going second cards, and Morgan managed to negate some wrong places, and the opponent was able to win there. That was Christian Thomas from E-Man, a really chill guy. All of his opponents bar one were really awesome, and they talked afterwards about what both of them could have done a little bit better. So overall a very good experience despite being the second loss there. Round 7 against Luna Orcust 2-0, the opponent was Jesse Cotton, seeing the 60 card pile and ending on Dweller, Appaloosa for 2, and Longiasu with Babel, but unfortunately that's not going to do a huge amount. So during Morgan's turn, the opponent was able to boost the Appaloosa with the Nightmare Engrave to 3 negates. However, the Dweller is obviously, terrible. He describes it as Battle-Ox versus him. And then Morgan had a Garuda for the Babel, so it's basically only the Appaloosa that's anything of an issue. However, his hand is really nice and he just manages to OTK through it anyway. Game 2, Jesse put on the Babel, set 1 and activated Card Destruction to pitch Harp. However, he drew into no monsters and has to pass on a Cosmic Cyclone and a Twin Set, and Morgan's hand is just entirely equipped to kill Jesse through that. So although it took about 10 to 15 minutes, it did end up with Jesse Cotton being knocked out from there. Round 8 against True Draco Striker. 2-0 here, losing the die roll and OTKing through the fairly weak Striker board. Game 2 is quite hard because the opponent used Different Dimension Ground and Super Poly, so Morgan was super low on resources but was able to do a lot of damage anyway. And then later on, thanks to the opponent's deck, there were loads of counters on all of the Endymion cards, so Magister was able to be resolved and establish a very big Endymion and sneak the win from there. Round 9 against Infernoid, a 2-1 here. Not sure if he wins the die roll, but Morgan started this one, opening a decent board. The opponent managed to clear it. However, loads of stuff got off, and then for the next turn there were things like Tempest and Dark Worm-Engrave. So he just made an IP and Pendulum Summon, and eventually he makes an Appaloosa. So essentially turning off the opponent's end board of Deviati and Hollindale. And then he can use the LP to further combo, make the Borosword and the Vortex Dragon, and it's really strange, but he wins that game. And then in game 2, the opponent starts kind of meh. He tries to... Morgan tries to play around Super Poly, but forgets that Lair of Darkness is on the field, and the opponent summons Triff, and it really sets him back, and he loses the game. Game 3, Time is called. There's an Aghav Dragon in Time. The opponent has an Impermanence, but chooses not to use it as he didn't want them both to be out, so super sound. The opponent respects the evil of Aghav Dragon for some reason. Round 10 against Gren Maju, 2-1. Morgan lost the die roll, but was not sure, but either way he ended up starting, and he ended pretty good, but the opponent ended up killing him through it anyway. Morgan's pretty sure that he negated some wrong things, and then in game 2 Morgan ended even better than the first one. The opponent's hand was even weaker, so just too much there. And then into game 3 the opponent started, ended on Sanafond and 2 back row, which are Super Poly and Danger Zone, so very strong. But a Danger Zone got sniped with Eccentric or Garuda, and eventually Morgan got Super Polyed, and his hand somehow was so bonkers that he could just break through it anyway, make a Borosword with the big Endymion and Unicorn, and kill the opponent through a Gizmek. So it took a while for him to think of it, but eventually he managed to make it happen. Again, a very cool opponent, but able to win that one 2-1. And the final round against Orcust, 2-1, winning the die roll, ending on a broken board. Game 2, the opponent ends on the Winder combo, which obviously he can't beat. And then in Game 3, once again, Morgan ends on the broken board. The opponent tries to slow things down a bit because Morgan had used Destrudo. But ultimately, there's no way that he's going to stop Morgan from carrying on. He told Morgan to put in Dark Ruler so that the Zephyr counter was just totally busted, and that stopped it from there. So overall, a 9-2 record, really, really strong. Unfortunate that there were so many people just missing out on Top Cut at this event, but overall, a very great experience. You got some epic matches in there. Let's move on to the siding strategy to get some more insights here. So he said he played his main 60 going first always with no changes. He says it seems kind of silly, but with a crazy deck like this, there's nothing you'd really want to improve. However, he was testing options for going first like Sloth or Aether for Hieratic, because if you get hand trapped, which is pretty likely to happen post side, then it turns Seal into multiple interrupts, which is really solid. Also, Zephyr War is slightly better than Divine Strike in some matchups, and some level 7 synchros are better than Dragster in other matchups. So in terms of the going second siding for against Orcust, Salad, and Striker, things like the Zephyr Exciton, Zephyr Thuban, Eccentrics, and Pancratox all come in. You just need that spot removal in there. So the combo pieces like Wendy, Zephyr Empilica, Set Rotation, E-Telly, Dragon Ravine, Destrudo, Tempest, and Divine Strike all come out. For going against just Thunder, he has a specific side deck for Thunder, so the Zephyr Exciton and Zephyr Thuban come in, the Dark Rules come in, and the Books of Eclipse come in too. Divine Strike coming out, Spell Power Mastery is obviously a search card, so that comes out, as well as the Master Cerberus, the Oracle of Zephyr, and one Providence. Very iffy, because obviously there are so many search spells, and Morgan's not entirely sure about how that's working at the moment, but he might change it up in the future. And then for deck number 3, so this is any combo deck that is not Thunder. Zephyr Exciton and Zephyr Thuban come in, as well as the Dark Rulers and the Pancratops as spot removal. And then once again taking out combo pieces, so the Wendy's, the Empilica, the Set Rotation, all these combo pieces that you just won't need to break the board, because you'll be just using the 1-for-1s anyway to trade off with something that's potentially bigger. So that's it for the siding. On to the additional questions before we wrap this thing up. So he said he had a really great time. It sucks that he was so close to his first YCS top, but tiebreakers do exist for a reason. Doing as well as he did makes him feel really good and makes him more determined to improve on it in the future. But yeah, seeing friends and playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Is always a great experience. I asked him why he decided to play this particular deck. He says he's very familiar with it. He's top 32 UK Nationals with 60-card Orcust Pendulum, so this was kind of similar in theory. However, since then, Nibiru and Dark Ruler were both released, and Mermaid was banned as well, leading to him replacing Magicians with Zephyr cards, so that he could get out the counter trap for Dark Ruler, and play a very heavy Endymion engine, so he'd always have 2 counters for Jackal when he summoned number 5, and never got Nibirus due to this, which is pretty nice too. As for hardest and easiest matchups, easiest is pretty much any rogue deck like Sky Striker Draco, Hero Marincess, when those decks don't really apply a lot of pressure, so you just push through all of their boards anyway with the Pendulum mechanic. The hardest matchup is Thunder though, due to the amount of search cards that exist within this deck. It is winnable. Also, if any deck has so many hand traps that you can't play through them, then it's really hard to do that too, so that's generally Salamangreat. Compared to other decks, the sort of standout changes that this deck embodies, there are things like the fact that obviously it's 60 cards, although the slim amount of Zephyr monsters and high amount of spell counter holding guys is kind of odd too. Also, he's not really sure if the Romulus combo is very popular yet, but he says it's very, very strong anyway, so definitely something worth trying out. As for whether it helped or hindered, he's pretty sure people's biggest question is why play 60, and it's kind of tough to explain, but basically to maximize your negates you need to play very weird garnets like Tempest and Dragon Ravine and Destrudo, so that at least that's in the ways that Morgan knows how to do the combo. If there's a better one, then obviously he'd go for that, but yeah, basically, and you want less chance to see the terrible bricks, which means you play more cards. So additionally, a lot of the cards here are best not to see in multiples, having 60 gives you a slightly less chance of that happening anyway. The only real issue is siding. However, he thinks that it has so much raw power that it's pretty much worth it. Plus, you can just risk heavy siding if you actually need to. As for changes that he would make to the deck, he's debating cutting the Ritual Beast Zephyrs for the Tellarknight Zephyrs because they're really good going second, and obviously you don't always win the die roll. However, he doesn't know what the emergency teleport would come out for, and the Ritual Beasts do have some very nice niche plays when being wind for the Tempest. He's also cutting the Borreload for a Cybers Quantum Dragon because it's much easier to access that to Avramax and Colossus, and he actually would have won the game 1 versus Thunder if he'd had it. Also, he's debating playing the Cypher Emerald Zeta, possibly in place of the Sayuja. I think he means Lambda here, right? As it's great versus decks like Orcus where they are so resilient. So reliant on the Galatea, which obviously must be in attack mode. No, he does mean the Zeta there. You just banish their attack position monster and then have free access. So yeah, great removal in the Zeta there. That's the Synchro 7 won that. So sets that are most influential, obviously the Endymion structure deck, Extreme Force for the Electromote and the Mythical Beast, and Cross Souls for the initial Zephyr cards. Maximum Crisis giving you the Dark Worms and the newer Zephyr cards, and also Pendulum Evolution, making him very happy when it made Abductor a super rare because it's one of his favourite cards. As for upcoming sets that he thinks will have an impact, the Duelist pack with all the protagonists in it is potentially something that's going to make him pretty happy with the Zarg Pendulum Magician coming out. Not only does he really love Zarg, but he thinks it's also a very interesting card and it can act as a way to play around Nibiru if you go down a weird synchro route, possibly with Ib or Ignista. Additionally, there is a Performer Pal, so that works with some really awesome cards like Pendulum Sorcerer and the new pop-up spell that's coming in that set. As for shoutouts, loads to say here. So shout out to Ben for sorting out the accommodation, Alice for driving him to UK Nats, as that event is what gave him the mindset to do so well at this one, to Luke for being great over the weekend and booking the train, Ryan who got up with him for day 2, Jamie for annoying him all weekend, to Treasure and Tracer for cheering for him back at home, and also to the Yukijo channel for doing stuff for the community. So thanks very much, Morgan, for coming on and helping out with this. If you have any other comments or suggestions that you guys think you have on this particular deck, let us know in the comment section down below. I'm sure that Morgan will be more than happy to respond to any of the comments that you have and answer any questions that you have on this list. How would you play Pendulum in the future? Do you think it should be played as a 60 card list with the additional garnets and the extra combo power, or do you think it should be played as a slimline build, just focusing on some more basic stuff? Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.